This is Benchmark Happenings, brought to you by Benchmark Home Loans, with Jonathan Tipton and Steve Reed. Now your host, Christine Reed.
Well, hello, everybody. We have a great episode today. We have Executive Director Laura Kelly with Holston Habitat for Humanity. Welcome.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
Well, thank you for being here today. So we have a lot to talk about, Laura. And so as I did the research on your website, just trying to learn more about Habitat for Humanity and specifically Holston Habitat for Humanity. So give us a little snapshot of what you do exactly for this wonderful organization.
There's a lot of different ways I could answer that question, but first, thanks for having me. So excited to talk about Holston Habitat and what we do here in the community. So I'm the executive director and started with Holston Habitat about 2.5 years ago. And so the work that Holston Habitat does is pretty broad. So our mission is to put God's love into action, bring the community together to build homes, communities, and hope. And so the way that we execute that mission throughout the community is we've kind of got 3 branches to our business, of which, of course, I have to oversee all of them, which means there's never a dull moment. So those 3 kind of legs of our stool is we've got construction. So we build new homes and we have a critical home repair program. We are the lender, so we both build the homes and then act as the bank. So we originate and we service those 0% interest mortgages. And then we're also retail. So we have 2 restores, and a restore, it's a secondhand store where we accept donations, gently used and new products like couches, furniture, side tables, sporting goods, construction materials, tools, art, all kinds of things. And between our 2 stores in Johnson City and Kingsport, we've got about 40,000 square feet of retail.
Oh, wow.
And across our different departments, we've got a staff of 30 to 32 people, kind of depending on where we are in the year.
Now, are most of these volunteers, Laura? Or
those are all employees.
So paid employees.
Paid employees, yeah. So I think when people think about Habitat for Humanity, they think new houses and they think home ownership. And that's a real core part of what we do. But we've also got these other components that complement and support the work that we do so that we can build more houses and serve more families. So we're the builder, we're the lender, and we're retail. Oh,
wow. Okay. Yeah. So that is interesting. I did not know that you guys were the lender. So a 0% loan. I don't think it gets any better than that, does it?
Don't, unless we pay you to live in your house. It really doesn't get any better than that. And that's why what we're doing is so important, because it means that we can serve lower income families, working families, or families with limited assets, single parents, just our vulnerable population who are just working so hard and they can't catch a break. They can't qualify for a conventional mortgage. They can't compete in such a competitive market right now. They don't have a big down payment. You know, they're paycheck to paycheck, or maybe their savings are just kind of limited and they can't get a foot in the door.
Right. Well, the landscape has certainly changed over the years. So bigger down payments now that are required. Most people, even people with an average income, really don't have those down payments. So we're always educating clients, please ask, the seller for closing costs. We always tell the realtor, please ask for that. So who can qualify for these homes, Laura? What type of families are you looking for? What are the qualifications, and what are the hoops, so to speak, that they have to actually accomplish to be able to get at one of these homes?
Sure. So we are a federally regulated lender, just like any other lender. And so some of our metrics are a little bit different to be able to qualify. So when we're looking for families who qualify, first I'll say we are working in Sullivan, Carter, and Washington counties in Tennessee, as well as Bristol, Virginia. So we have the pleasure of going over the state line.
That's a large area that you cover.
It is. It is. And so primarily we're building within city limits. That's just where we see the most demand for families who want to keep their kids in the same city school system or staying in certain neighborhoods, closer proximity to services. Sometimes we're thinking about access to resources, or maybe a family doesn't have a super reliable car, so they want to make sure they can be close to a bus route and transit. All those things matter. So we just find that more of our applicants want to live within city limits. Of course, there are exceptions to that, but primarily that's where we're building. And who we're building for, it's families who are making, or individuals who are making between 30 and 65% of our average median income.
Okay, can you explain that?
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about average median income, because I think the wage index and things are a little bit different depending on what part of the country that you live in. So let's talk about our average, that income level for this particular area and how that would differ from, all the other areas.
Sure. So when we're looking at a household, first, these numbers are coming from HUD every year.
Okay.
And so this is just coming down from our federal government. It's released every spring, and that informs our numbers and our qualification process.
And for those listening who don't know what HUD stands for, let's just...
Yes, it is the Housing and Urban Development.
Okay.
So that's money coming down from the White House, and that money is dispersed into, all of our cities and counties, all kinds of programs. But those numbers are what we base our program on.
Okay.
So the HUD guidelines, Housing and Urban Development, informs our program based on the average median income. We hear a lot of AMI. So across our 3 counties, each county has a different base average median income.
Okay.
So when I've got a sheet in front of me so that I don't butcher these numbers. So it ranges if you've got a 1-person household, a 3, a 5-person household. And so when we look at, let's say, a 4-person family, when we are looking at Kingsport, Bristol, and Sullivan County, a 4-person household making 60% of our average median income, or let's say 65. So this is the upper limit of what we would qualify, is a $45,000 household income.
Okay.
Our lowest level is $21,150. So $21,000 to $45,000. That's a 4-person household income. So we see a lot of single income households coming through our program. In fact, over our almost 40-year history, 45% of our families have been single mothers.
I was going to ask you if it was primarily single moms out there.
There's a lot of single parent households. It's just tough. It's tough for them to find something that they can afford and for them to be stretching their dollars as they're raising kids. So we just find that those households happen to qualify a lot for our program. And that tells you kind of the picture of need in our community. So that's a 4-person household. If we're thinking about a 1-person household in that same area, Kingsport, Bristol, Sullivan County, 30%, our lowest limit, is $14,850. So that is going to be our Social Security population, our disability population, folks who are retired and who are extremely limited on their income. No way you could afford a mortgage.
I was going to say, or rent an apartment.
Right.
I mean,
yeah. The way that rentals are in this market right now, it's just crazy. So that's our lowest income, and then highest for a 1-person household would be $32,110.
So when you break those down, Laura, we're looking at Kingsport, Sullivan County, and Bristol. Are those on the lower end versus if we go to Johnson City, Washington County? Is that AMI a little bit higher in those areas?
Really between our 2 areas, so they break up Kingsport, Bristol, Sullivan County in one section, and then Washington and Carter County are in a separate. There's a $3,000 difference between the 2.
So there's really not much.
Very little variability.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And so when we look at, I'll say again that 4-person household, our max is $45,000. The median household income for a family of 4 in that area is $74,600. So that's our average household income.
Wow. Okay. That's, yeah. That is sobering to hear that information. And I think it's really good for us to understand that and kind of look at, East Tennessee. We talk about how it's a beautiful area. We've got people moving here because my husband's been in the lending business with Benchmark Home Loans for 40 years now. And we have seen in the last several years people coming from California, New York, Florida, because everybody wants to come to East Tennessee. But what people don't see is there is just there's a huge need here.
There is, and I think we can look through the history of East Tennessee over the last 25 to 30 years, and this area has been marketed to employers as a beautiful place with high quality of life and low wages. So that's an incentive for employers to come here, because then their employers can grow and thrive and build their business. And so we haven't seen wage growth in comparison to other metropolitan areas across the state, whether it's Knoxville or Chattanooga, Memphis. Sure, we're not as large of a metro area by any stretch of the means, but we are the slowest growing wage center in the state right now. And that's been true for years. So when we're looking at, let's say, what are the types of jobs that typical quote unquote habitat families may have, we see a lot of folks who are working in hospitality, who are working in the medical field as CNAs or as in an assistant type job or a phlebotomist.
Okay.
We see teachers' assistants, bus drivers, entry-level teachers in our school systems between counties ranges from $40,000 to $45,000. And so if you're a single income household, it just paints a picture of our wages haven't really kept up with inflation over the years.
No,
and
they
so
have
that's
not.
why when we look at our current market, we have the most amount of families ever applying for our program because they just can't compete.
So how many, and I'm thinking about, a certified nursing assistant, a bus driver, and all of those amazing people that have these jobs. This is the lifeline of our community. What they're doing, we need these people to do these particular jobs.
They are the backbone.
They are, and it's so important, so important what they do. Because if we didn't have these people, who would get the majority of the work, the heavy lifting done?
Yeah, I think a lot of what I and what Holston Habitat, what we've been trying to do over the last year and a half is really just educate our community about who needs assistance. And let's remember that labor goes wherever housing is cheapest. And so if we can't provide housing that our workforce can afford, they will go somewhere else.
That's right.
And then it will impact our school systems, and it will impact social services, and it will impact nonprofits, and it will impact our grocery store. It will impact us in many ways that I think some of us are already feeling. Turnover is just tough.
It is.
And it costs a lot of money.
It really
does.
does.
So this isn't, I'm not just focused on housing. We are focused on, our whole community. There's a holistic approach to this with our quality of life. And one component of that is our housing and making sure that it's accessible. And then we've got to zoom out and think, what else can we do to keep people here?
So how many people are actually applying for a home? How many applications do you see within the year? And then to date, how many homes have you all been able to provide for these families?
So the way our program works is that we've opened up for windows of application periods. Otherwise, we'd be processing applications all throughout the year. And what we don't like to do at all is to maintain a wait list. Because we find that, especially with our working families, and with any of us really, a financial picture can change really quickly.
Yes.
There can be a medical emergency. Somebody might have a car breakdown and need to buy a car, and it throws their debt to income ratio out of whack. And then it just takes... We just find that it's best for the family and best for our program if we can get them through in a 12 to 18 month window from the very start to getting the keys. So we just open up for windows of application periods 1 or 2 times a year.
Okay.
And so when I started 2.5 years ago, we distributed, probably over 200 applications to interested households, and we received 66 back. In our most recent, and that was for 5 spots. So 66 applications for 5 spots.
For 5 spots.
In our most recent application window, which just wrapped up a couple weeks ago, we distributed well over 300, maybe even 400 applications, and we received 155 for 5 spots. So that tells you the growth of the need, the demand for a quality starter home. We've got, and out of those 155, many are denied. Obviously, the largest grouping of those, the reason for denial is too low income. Second largest is actually too high income. So think about folks who are making less than $20,000 a year or less than $30,000, folks who can't afford it. And then you've got the folks who are maybe just above, kind of just between this, okay, we're making enough to just get by, but we don't have any more wiggle room. Every dollar we have is stretched. So we're serving that 30 to 65% AMI household, but there's still need above and beyond what we can do. So,
and those particular families, Laura, do they receive any other type of assistance, or is this just generally that this is their income, they are working, and they don't qualify for any other type of assistance?
So some households will have Social Security or disability benefits.
Okay.
Some households will have access to food stamps and those types of programs. And what we do is when we generate a 0% interest mortgage, we service that over time. When we originate their loan, we never originate the total loan value over a 20 to 30-year term. Most of our families are on a 30-year loan. We don't originate it for more than 30% of their household income. So let's say their household income, over a period of 30 years, they can afford a $150,000 house. We had this during COVID. So they can afford $150,000 over a 30-year term. Now, keeping in mind that every payment they make, since it's 0%, that goes right towards the principal and escrow. So the amount of equity that they get in this house right off the bat is just tremendous. It's life-changing. And let's say they can afford the $150,000, but it appraises for $200,000. So what that means is that Holston Habitat, as a partner in this, is we will originate a silent second mortgage with a 15 to 20-year term, and that on a monthly basis is forgivable. So they're making their monthly payment, but they're also earning 1 month of that forgivable mortgage. So if they stay in their home, that's what incentivizes them to stay put, to stay where they are and where in a place that they can afford. So at the end of that 15 or 20-year term, boom, they've got a real shot in the arm of equity. And so what we see then is they can leverage against that house. They can go back to school. They can send their kid to school. They can buy a car. They've got collateral.
Okay.
And that's the game changer for our low-income families, to give them a hand up, to change the game. I mean, that's their first, 99% of our families are first-time home buyers, many of which it's the first time that anybody in their lineage has had a house.
Has had a house.
They've had a long line of renters. So then we're looking at generational wealth. Then they can pass down a house.
That's right. And that home ownership is so important. I mean, we talk about that here in the lending business. We encourage people to buy a home, because by owning a home, you're actually building wealth. And you just, represented that so beautifully, that it truly does build wealth. And so you can look at renting an apartment per se versus buying a home, even though and I'm just talking about the regular home ownership now, but even though that percent of that loan is actually higher, you're still better off buying a home and putting your money towards that mortgage. So, and I know you guys have probably done a lot of research on the benefits of home ownership. A lady I met with several years ago at Summit with Holston Habitat had some great statistics that I was just amazed by. And we actually use a lot of that information with people who are looking for a loan about when you own a home, these are the benefits. So what are some of those things that you all have seen that owning a home provides to a family?
Oh gosh, there's so many things I could say here. So I'm trying to be cognizant of how much time we have to talk. One thing that comes to mind is that children of homeowners are 117% more likely to go to college.
Love it.
That's long-term
finish high
impact.
school even.
Right.
To finish high school.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of what we talk about at Habitat is that homeownership builds strength, stability, and self-reliance. And so you've got this shelter where you feel safe, where you're stable, so you can do your homework in a consistent place. We build really energy-efficient, tight houses. Our HERS ratings are consistently under 75. So that means you've got an energy-efficient home. Your utility bills are going to be really low, and it's good air quality. And so when we think about our our home buyers who are coming to us from rentals, many or most of them are substandard. They could have plumbing issues, they could have roofing issues, leaks. And so we see folks who are coming in with respiratory issues, whether it's asthma or heart conditions, or maybe they're nervous about their physical stability, like their balance. So for our disabled population, all of our houses are ADA compliant. So we're building wide doorways, we're building in these features, whether you need them now or not, because we want you to stay in your home. We want you to age in place gracefully and with dignity. And so that long-term stability in a house, it means that you can, yes, afford it, and your house only becomes more affordable over time. But then you don't have to worry about what nursing home am I going to go to? I might just be able to ride this out here comfortably.
Yes.
So we see tremendous health impacts. I don't know about you, but when I put a fresh coat of paint on in a room in my house, it benefits me emotionally, psychologically. So when our families are walking into a home that they bought, that they helped to design, they pick out the flooring, the fixtures, the wall color, the siding, the roofing, they pick out all their features in their home. So they walk in and they say, I did this, I designed this, and they're proud of it.
Absolutely. And
so
that just builds their self-esteem and self-worth and being able to do that and contributing. Now, in building the house, do the families take part in helping to build their home?
They do, yes. Let me kind of back up and talk about how families qualify. I think you asked that a little bit earlier.
Okay, yeah, we got a little sidetracked, but that's okay.
So how families qualify is we are not a turnkey program. We really believe in walking alongside these families for some time, that 12 to 18 month period, because there's a lot to learn about becoming a homeowner and becoming a successful homeowner. And so when they apply, they agree to go through a homeownership education program.
I love
so
that.
So that's an 8 to 10 week program where they're doing a deep dive into their financials. They're creating a budget and bringing in their receipts. And they're going through this with their other families in the program. So they're kind of this cohort where it's vulnerable, but they really, they latch arms and they go through this together and they share ideas. And so it's really special part of the program. So they're doing, a financial analysis and learning how to budget. They're also thinking about what kind of insurance they need, thinking about estate and planning their will. Home maintenance, what does that look like now versus in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? So over that 10-week period, we really try to equip them with what they'll need. When the family's qualified, there's also got to be some demonstration of need. And so for us, we're looking at where are they coming from now? What is their home? Is it dilapidated? Are there structural issues, HVAC, mechanical, those types of things? Is there overcrowding? So we see sometimes too many kids in a bedroom or grandparents raising grandkids and somebody's on a couch. Location, are they safe? Do they feel stable wherever they are? And can they afford it? And nobody can afford it right now. So almost everybody is just qualifying based on that metric alone. So that's the demonstration of need. They've got the education and then the sweat equity. So that's the Habitat term for they're volunteering their time. They're putting that skin in the game. So they have to do at least 250 hours of sweat equity. And that's a full month of volunteering your 8-hour days.
Right.
So they're volunteering in our restores, in our main office. They're building other families' houses, and then they have to spend at least 50 hours building their own house. And we think that is so important, and it's so worthwhile for the families to feel a little bit more confident going into a Lowe's or a Home Depot, or swinging a hammer, or learning how to patch some drywall. It's really empowering to learn how to do those things on your own, so that when they do move in, and if something happens, they can handle it, or they at least know who to call, where to go. So you've got demonstration of need, you've got the education program, and you've got the sweat equity components. And I mentioned earlier, we originate that 0% interest mortgage. So they've got to have enough money that they can pay their mortgage every month, because here's the beautiful part. They're paying their mortgage to us every month, and all of those mortgage payments, besides the escrow, that goes right into building the next Habitat house.
Yes.
So that's beautiful. If you're a Habitat family, you're always building the next Habitat house.
I wondered how that you were able to keep that going to build the next home. So how do you get, so how many volunteers, how do you get volunteers and to help? Because it sounds like it takes a lot. And I know you said you had 30 employees, so that is a lot. That's more than what I realized, actually. But I know there's a lot of volunteers that come out and help, and it's not just coming out and building the home. What else can someone who's interested, how can they contact you, and how can they get involved to help with this wonderful community service?
Sure. So you're right. It takes about 2,000 man-hours to build a Habitat house.
Wow.
So 80% of the work that we're doing on our houses is done by volunteers. And things that we really need to be warranted, like pouring concrete in the footers and doing the roofing and drywall. We all think we can do drywall. We can't do drywall. That's a good thing to hire out.
Yes. And footers for concrete.
Yeah.
Those are very important.
You know, your electrical, your plumbing, all the things that really need to be warranted, we hire out, but the volunteers are doing the rest. And so we're building 5 or 6 new homes a year, and we've got 10 or 15 home repair projects happening a year. And so we hire out some of those things, but of course we welcome volunteers from all walks of life. So we've got church groups or civic groups, you know, Bible studies, school groups, neighborhood associations, employees from any company. You know, we do a lot of corporate build days. So there are all kinds of ways to come out, whether you're just an individual looking to sign up on your own or as a part of a group. You can volunteer on a work site. You can, you know, if a work site isn't your thing, you can volunteer at one of our restores by processing donations that come in, helping to get things onto the floor, helping customers load their new bedside table into their vehicle. And then we always need support in our main office. So that could look like stuffing envelopes or providing administrative support to some of our full-time staff. So
always many things to do,
many
right?
ways to get involved.
So what about with volunteering? What would be the age limit for children?
So 14 and 15-year-olds can participate with 0 power tools operating on a work site. And so that's great for painting and landscaping. Those are great activities. 16 and 17, you know, they can be there when, and they can use hand tools. So doing siding, helping to install flooring, some of the more physical labor, especially landscaping. You think about young backs. I always try and get a Boy Scout troop or a young group to help us with the landscaping. And then 18 and up, of course, they can use power tools. So.
Okay. Well, Laura, it's been a pleasure having you on today, and we're getting ready to wrap up this episode. But just really quickly, what would be something you would want the audience to take away from our conversation today, or something that we just did not cover?
One thing I'll share is that we're always looking for more partners. And so whether that's coming out to participate on a build or donating product, that means a huge deal to us. We're trying to keep costs down so that we can serve more families. And so I'd say if there were any businesses out there who wanted a tax-deductible donation that's going to really change a family's life, we'd love to work with you on that. We're also always looking for land. We have a real shortage of land that we can build on right now. So I would welcome any property owner who's looking to just divest of their property. We would love to talk to you about that. And we'd love to have more volunteers. So the best way to find out about what we've got going on is on our website, where you can find us at holstonhabitat.org. My door is always open. Again, I'm Laura Kelly. So appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we're up to in the community. There's a lot of good to come.
Absolutely. Thank you, Laura. And just your attitude is positive and it's contagious. Thank you for what you're doing. So that's going to be a wrap, guys, with Laura Kelly, Executive Director for Holston Habitat for Humanity.